President Quigley is at the inauguration of our new governor, so he will be absent today. Member Campbell is also away. Mr. Venegas, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, sir.
Would you all please rise?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Member Hanson, would you mind pulling up the board affirmation statement?
Our mission is to ensure that all students are prepared for college and a successful life academically, socially, and emotionally, as well as equipped with the necessary tools to have options and make decisions about their long-term goals. This will be accomplished by believing and working towards all students learning through rigorous curricula and meaningful, effective instruction, consequently demonstrating mastery on high-quality assessments, with all stakeholders being held accountable throughout the process.
Thank you. Dr. Mitchum, agenda approval and approval of agenda revisions.
Yes, Member Gugis, I'd like to amend the agenda to correct action item 13.1 and then present the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Sikora?
Yes.
Member Felice?
Yes.
Secretary Hansen?
Yes.
Vice President Gugis?
Yes. Treasurer's report. Assistant Superintendent Grisafi.
Yes, the financial reports, including the statement of revenue, expenditures, and equity for December 2014, the balance sheet for the same time frame, along with the summary of revenue and expenditures and encumbrances, along with the interim obligation payments for December 2014, totaling $3,989,280.05, are presented for your approval and action.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Sikora?
Yes.
Member Felice?
Yes.
Secretary Hansen?
Yes.
Vice President Gugis?
Yes.
The schedule of bills for January 2015, totaling $2,060,637.02, are presented for your approval and action as well.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Sikora?
Yes.
Member Felice?
Yes.
Secretary Hansen?
Yes.
Vice President Gugis?
Yes.
We also have the summary of investments for December, property taxes received, a state funding update, no change there to report, as well as the school trust activity for any questions you might have presented for information.
Thank you. Consent agenda items.
Yes, Member Gugis, I'd like to ask the board to approve consent agenda items 6.1 through 6.6. 6.1 board meeting minutes, December 8th, 2014. 6.2 executive session meeting minutes, December 8th, 2014. 6.3 gifts for B.J. Ward, Irene King, and Independence Elementary Schools, as well as Bolingbrook High School. 6.4 trips for Brooks Middle School and Bolingbrook High School. 6.5 approval of technology lease. And 6.6 reimbursement resolution number 1503 for instructional technology lease.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Sikora?
Yes.
Member Felice?
Yes.
Secretary Hansen?
Yes.
Vice President Gugis?
Yes. Student and staff recognition. Dr. Mitchum.
Yes, first from Brooks Middle School, we have Principal Dr. Wood.
Superintendent Mitchum, Board of Education, employees of the Valley View School District, and community members. I'm Christina Sylvester. I'm one of the assistant principals at Brooks Middle School, and it is my pleasure to introduce you to Mrs. Francie Kapp, who is being recognized as our pillar this evening. Mrs. Kapp has served the Valley View School District in a variety of capacities in her 13 years here. She has been a speech-language pathologist, a special education coordinator, and presently serves as the student resource team leader for Brooks Middle School. Ms. Kapp has proven instrumental in building and district-level committees, including Response to Intervention, Crisis Prevention Institute, Danielson Framework for SRT Leaders, and Assistive Technology. In addition to working at Brooks, Mrs. Kapp is also a resident of Bolingbrook And 2 of her 3 children, who are all here in the audience this evening, attend Valley View schools. Gianna is a 5th grader at Pioneer, and Connor is in 2nd grade at R.C. Hill. The following excerpts from staff members are just a few of the many kind words that were spoken about Ms. Kapp in recommending her for this honor. Her positive and kind attitude radiates with every interaction. She always makes sure that students, staff, and parents have the tools and information they need to be successful. She is one of the most dedicated and positive people I've ever met. She is someone that I look up to and aspire to be more like. She makes you feel like you matter. Working with Francie has been so rewarding. Mrs. Francie Kapp is an asset to Brooks Middle School and the Valley View School District, and it is my pleasure to recognize her this evening as a pillar.
Hermanson Elementary. Sorry, Dr. Mitchell. Go ahead.
Okay. Next, from Hermanson Elementary School, Principal Mitchum.
Good evening, Vice President Gugis, board members, and the senior leadership in our community of Valley View. Hermanson would like to recognize Ms. Amy Toda as a pillar of Valley View. With 7 years of experience already in the district, Ms. Toda came to Hermanson 2 years ago as a reading specialist. Immediately, she shared her ideas and experiences which added strength to her team and provided support for KLH students and teachers in the best practices of reading. Ms. Toda's motivation and passion, coupled with her vast knowledge and experience, has truly impacted student achievement. She is respected and sought after not only at Hermanson, but is also an asset to the district as a key resource in the reading department and in the area of implementing RTI. Thank you, Ms. Toda, for your commitment to Hermanson students and to the Valley View's vision.
Next is the Illinois Elementary School Association State Basketball Finalist. I believe Assistant Principal Polson will be introducing from Jane Adams. Hey girls, can you scoot around on both sides of your assistant principal so you can all fit on TV? Thank you, ladies.
Good evening, Vice President Gugis, members of senior leadership, members of the board, Dr. Mitchum, and members of the community. I'm Teresa Polson, the assistant principal of Jane Addams Middle School. It is an honor with Dr. Paskavich, the principal, and I to recognize these amazing young ladies that are standing before you. These are some of the most elite student athletes we have in the Valley View School District. And Coach Hasselberg, along with the support of Coach Miller, will introduce these young ladies to you.
Thank you. All right. Demia Patton. Ariel McElroy. Alyssa Cazares. Tati Hilaire. Mercedes. Charlize Abad. Jasmine Dugan. Caitlin Stephen. Michaela Conway. Ariel Davis. Thank you.
See, they do that well. Most groups don't, like, take pictures while they do that. People got down. People got. Yes, they've had some practice. All right, so congratulations, ladies. Once again. The board meeting does continue, but for those of you students, people that were recognized today, do not feel that you have to stay. You're welcome to, but we understand that you have busy lives, homework, work, so feel free to take off if you so wish. Bye. Hello, back row. How is the back row? All right. Liaison report, starting from my right, any and all. Member Venegas?
None.
I have none. Our Wilco board meeting is tomorrow night, so I'll have something to report at the following meeting.
Audience participation, stakeholders as, I'm sorry, Member Sikora, did you have anything? Okay.
No,
Audience participation, stakeholders as individuals or groups may present their views to the board at this time. All right, seeing none. Action reports, Dr. Mitchum.
Where we at? Yeah, yes. Member Gugis, I'd like to ask the board to approve student due process cases A through D as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call vote, please.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Sikora?
Yes.
Member Felice?
Yes.
Secretary Hansen?
Yes?
Vice President Gugis?
Yes. Action reports, Assistant Superintendent for Education, Mrs. Kinder.
No report this evening.
All right. Action reports, Assistant Superintendent for Administrative Services, Mr. Grizzoffi.
No report.
Action report, Executive Director for Human Resources, Mrs. Hawks.
Thank you, Vice President Gugis. Action Report 13.1, Consolidated Action Report for Certified and Classified Personnel. This evening, we're seeking your approval on 33 items for certified, 37 for classified, 1 for administrative certified, and 2 for administrative classified personnel.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Sikora?
Yes.
Member Felice?
Yes.
Secretary Hansen?
Yes?
Vice President Gugis?
Yes.
My second action report this evening is Action Report 13.2, Resolution Number 1504, and we are seeking the board's approval and adoption of the resolution authorizing dismissal of educational support personnel employees for reasons other than reduction in force.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Do you have any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Sikora?
Yes.
Member Felice?
Yes.
Secretary Hansen?
Yes?
Vice President Gugis?
Yes.
My next action report, 13.3, is Resolution Number 1505. We're recommending the board approve and adopt the resolution authorizing the notice of charges and dismissal of a tenured teacher from employment for reasons other than reduction in force and to suspend said teacher without pay pending completion of the dismissal process.
Motion?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Sikora?
Yes.
Member Felice?
Yes.
Secretary Hansen?
Yes?
Vice President Gugis?
Yes.
My final action report this evening is Action Report 13.4, job descriptions. I am requesting that the board waive the second reading and recommend the approval of the proposed job description for the Assistant Executive Director for Support Services. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Is this one any questions on? I had several questions that I had addressed to Ms. Kinder, Mrs. Kinder, and Dr. Mitchum, and they will respond to them later, I assume.
Okay. Roll call vote?
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Sikora?
No.
Member Felice?
Yes.
Secretary Hansen?
Yes?
Vice President Gugis?
Yes. Superintendent's information reports.
Yes, thank you, Vice President Gugis. I have information report 14.1, which is presenting information prior to seeking approval for the high school 2015 summer school program for general high school program, driver's education, and Phoenix summer program. The location for our programs this year will be Bolingbrook High School. As per usual, transportation will not be provided, and students or parents are responsible for providing transportation. Our Assistant Principal of Curriculum and Instruction at Bolingbrook High School, Michelle Albano, will serve in the capacity of Principal of the General High School program, along with related staffing, which you can find outlined in the information report. And the Principal of the Phoenix Summer School program will be the sitting Assistant Principal or Director of Phoenix program, Mrs. Chris Ruddy. The tuition will remain the same for the high school courses at $175 per course, and the tuition for driver's education will remain the same at $250, plus the $20 fee to the state of Illinois for processing the instructional permit. The general high school program will begin June 8th, and we will run 2 3-week sessions that are held from 7:30 a.m. to 11:45 a.m. You will find a budget outlined for the general high school program. Tuition fee offsets the expenses incurred for the summer school program. And then the dates for the driver's education program, it will also begin June 8th and run through June 18th, with the second portion of the program beginning June 15th and running through July 14th. The Phoenix program will run for a shortened session, an AM and PM, from June 8th to June 26th, from 7:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., with an afternoon session from noon until 4 p.m. I'm happy to answer any questions, and this is in line with the program that we have run in previous years.
Just a question with regards to cost. Are we right about the same level as we were last year?
We are. We have, for driver's education, hit the maximum fee there, and with high school, we had a significant increase 2 or 3 years previous, and previous to that we hadn't had an increase for quite a few years, so we are keeping the fee the same for this year, and we will reconsider that for the following. Okay. If there are no questions, information report 14.2. We'd like to share some information with the Valley View community tonight regarding our elementary summer learning experience program. We'd like to share a recap of the previous summer's program, as well as provide some information on what our families can expect from our offerings this summer. I'd like to introduce you to Mrs. Elizabeth Martinez. She's the Executive Director of Pre-K 5, and she will share some information with you tonight regarding SLE.
Thank you, Mrs. Kinder. Well, good evening, Vice President Gugis, Superintendent Mitchum, Board of Education, as well as parents, staff, and community. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm very honored to introduce Liz Hornbeck, who was the Director of Summer Learning last year. And we also have Adam Herder here and Michael Locasio. Adam Herder is the Director of Math and Science at the elementary level, and Michael Locasio is the Director of Data and Assessment. And if there's any other questions, they're available to answer any questions as well. My name is Elizabeth Martinez, and I'm the Executive Director of Educational Services, Pre-K 5. My clicker. Thank you, sorry. Okay, our aspirations for summer learning experience is that we want to set up an environment for our students to be engaged in exploration and application and discovery of learning. We want to extend their learning and promote academic growth. We want the students to understand what they are learning, how they are getting there, and where they will go next, and take ownership over their learning experience. And this is very consistent with what we're doing during the school year as well. This presentation is a little overview of 2014 as well as 2015 summer learning experience. By the end of 2015, this summer, we would like students to maintain that intellectual engagement and that academic growth during that summer break. We will provide differentiated and rigorous academic supports and a strategic delivery of curriculum based on data. We feel that we want our students to also be supported in intellectually, socially, emotionally supported. Our priorities and our goals for summer learning is to increase access so we have more students participating in the program. We do provide tuition support for our free and reduced lunch students and our at-risk learners. We instruct students in the least restrictive environment, and we also are able to provide free breakfast and lunch through a community grant. And we have been working in the last few years of efficiently and being very effectively managing the program so that it is not a loss to the district, that it is a cost neutral, or we would potentially make a little bit to further support the program. By the end of 2015, we know that our students will be actively engaged, and we will monitor their academic growth. We also want our parents to trust in the learning environment so that they feel confident that their students are physically, socially, emotionally, and intellectually engaged in this rigorous and exciting learning experience. In the past years, our primary goal has been to maintain instructional gains and minimize summer learning loss. We use spring and fall MAP scores and analyze that to determine the impact of summer learning loss. The results have shown that participating in SLE limited the summer learning loss. So we saw that, this is being very effective for our learners in the way that we were measuring it previously with MAP. So this year we've learned from our experiences, and we found that the message is very difficult to communicate of summer learning loss. We also were not able to measure all students by MAP previously because we had out-of-district students as well as pre-K students. Also, the program design requires assessment information for student with learning gains and alignment to the instructional practices. So we're being more strategic with our delivery of instruction and how we're measuring that. And so last year, we chose to focus on pre and post assessments tied directly to the SLE instruction so we can be more strategic and more differentiated for our students. So for 2014, we've shifted our program evaluation to a pre and post test in literacy and math. All students were included in this analysis, and it focused on gains rather than losses. We strive to link data more directly to the instructional practices. Here is a chart of showing our reading fluency for each grade level. You will see that every grade level from pre and post, we saw gains. This is an assessment that measured the average words read out loud, so fluency, and all grade levels, as you can see, showed gains. Now, with math, we also used a fluency assessment, and you can see that there was gains in each of the different grade levels, and we saw growth. So we wanted to bring out that it does look inconsistent there, but it does not necessarily mean that there was a dip there from 4th to 5th grade. What this shows is the specific skills. So as these basic foundational skills, computational skills, which is addition, subtraction, math, and division, the students were getting better at mastery for the fluency of those skills, but you can see at 5th grade, the skills are much more difficult and challenging for the students, so that is not an unexpected way to look at those skills because it's different curriculum. It's not measuring from each different grade level. So we also surveyed parents, and we found that 87% of our parents were satisfied or very satisfied with the program. 92% were satisfied with the classroom placement, which included the teachers, grade level, curriculum. 96% of the students benefited socially, and 69% of the parents feel that the fee for SLE is appropriate. We tried to benchmark with other programs in the community to make sure that this program is something that would be available and appropriate for our community. So I will now go into the details of our program. The last few years, we have worked collectively across departments as well as with teachers and principals of the SLE program to be much more efficient with how we're managing the program. So I will explain some of the details of the program. This is available for all VVSD elementary students from kindergarten through 5th grade and out-of-district students, and they do have a higher cost for out-of-district students. Our 3 locations this year will be Hermanson, BJ Ward, and Pioneer. The dates will be June 11th through July 22nd. That's a 6-week program. And the class hours are from 8:30 to 3:30, and we will be working in partnership with our community resources to have after-school programs, after SLE programs for our students. We offer professional development and support for our staff. Each staff member will get 6 hours of professional development, and the purpose of that will be for orientation, planning of core curriculum, and allowing time for preparation and getting the room set up. Administrators and secretary training will also take place, and we also have a parent orientation so that the parents are partners with us in this 6-week program. The funding is, I stated earlier, is tuition-based program, and we were able to secure 90 Title I scholarships available for our low-income families who qualify. So we look at a variety of criteria to make sure that this would be something that our students of most need would be able to benefit from this program. We have one SLE director, and I introduced Liz Hornback, and then we have one principal at each of the sites. And they will handle pre-planning, record-keeping, organization, closing activities, basically the management of each of the buildings. Last year, our enrollment, our locations were Independence, RC Hill, and Tibbet, and you can see from this slide our participation, and we would like this year to have even more students participate. This is a budget overview of the positions as well as what the total cost was. Now remember, this is cost neutral to the district, and actually this year we were able to actually make a little bit of money from the program, which was nice so that we didn't get into the red, and that additional funds will go right back into the program in materials and consumables. So we just wanted to share with you the exciting work that has been going on in the summer months and during the school year as we plan for this. And we're happy to see that our students not only are seeing academic gains, but they're also having fun. They're motivated, they're engaged, they're passionate, and they're really enjoying the curiosity of learning and the joy. And here's a little example of the excitement and fun in the summer. Did I do something? Okay.
We see the picture.
Oh, but I worked all day to get the happy song on there. It has the happy song. It was very happy. And the happy learners. And we practiced it earlier. Look at Sarah will even sing, oh, we're happy. Okay, well, thank you. Sorry about that.
All right, thank you.
Any questions, anything that I can address?
Is there bus transportation for the elementary?
There is not.
Was that a problem last year?
We did not have transportation last year. We did the previous year, but the cost of the funding was something that, with this being a cost-neutral program, that was not something that we could support as a district.
Another question, this may be Rachel. I noticed we have high school and we have elementary. Junior high does such a good job, we don't have to have anything in the summer?
No, we're working on that. And the last year we had a kind of a virtual learning experience where teachers served as coaches, and we had open labs, and students worked on Odyssey on their own individual learning paths, and they could come in and get help from the teacher. We obviously want to expand that even more. We are working on transition programs right now so that we could have 5th to 6th grade transition, like a bridge program, as well as 8th to 9th transition. And it's something that we're very aware of and we want to continue to strengthen.
Just one question, the numbers and the percentages of the feedback that you got from the parents and that.
Yes.
How was that communicated? Was that sent home to the parents?
Yes.
And was it, they mailed it back, or how was that communicated back to us?
It was paper surveys and online. We provided both ways of being able to collect that from our parents.
So you had 332 last year. Roughly how many people responded to give us those kind of percentage numbers?
I think it was 130.
That's
It
a
was
good
about
sample
130 people participated. And we did try to communicate and get feedback from the parents. And so trying to get it in both ways, we'll strive to work on that.
No, that's good. Thanks. I just was hoping it wasn't like 25. Thanks.
With the 69% feel appropriate fees, were they giving feedback on what they thought would be appropriate? Because that's
Yes.
2/3. What were they saying?
They basically didn't give an opportunity to go into too much detail, but of course I think people would like it to be less expensive. And it is $100 a week, and it was $125 for out-of-district students. when we looked at our other summer programs, we were very competitive. We did reduce the price last year, actually, to make it more affordable for our community. And so, you know, I think people just struggle, and it's hard to be able to, you know, be able to provide that as best that we could support them. I think the community would like that, but
we are right along the line of everybody else.
we are.
and things
We're
like that.
we're right along with that. And remember that we have certified teachers that are running this program. This isn't. I mean, these are high quality teacher with rigorous curriculum and instruction. And we have our curriculum directors also working with the teachers to look at this very strategically. So it's a different program than what some of the other programs are offered in the community.
One last question, sorry.
I'm loving it. Go for it.
For those that are on the free and reduced that might be eligible for some assistance, how do those people get heard?
Okay, we provided a process that we looked at some criteria. It was a pretty sophisticated process last year, actually. We worked closely with our data and assessment department as well as Ricardo Sanchez and our bilingual department to make sure that we're giving access to all of our students. So we looked at the academically most needy as well as financially. So we looked at a couple different indicators to determine which of our students are in the most need. Then we sent the list, the list of the students that could benefit, and we gave that to the principals, and the principals worked with the families to try to secure the grants for the families. So that relationship at the building level we thought was really important. So we had the buildings reach out to the families to try to offer some additional support.
Okay, so, because last year I had a couple of families reach out to me, and so then we should direct them to the building principals.
Yes,
That's
we will
the
work
best
with
practice.
them, yeah, and although we've managed it here at the district office, we have them do the communication because they have that relationship at the building level.
We'll send them to the principals.
Yep.
Cool, thank you.
All right.
Or to me, I'd be happy to take any calls.
A couple questions for you.
Sure.
What was the drop in enrollment last year in the summer program from the year prior?
We did have,
Very consistent. We were in the 300.
yeah. It was, our goal was to have about this number. We did try to raise the goal of about 60 students, I think it was, but.
But we lost about 60? Because I know we lost some because we talked about
Yes,
the fact that we
I'm
lost
sorry, I
some.
don't have that
Okay.
from,
360, and this year it was 339. So
Yeah.
it was close. Maybe it was 367.
Okay. So it's like 10%.
Right.
Math teachers help me.
and that probably had something to do with the locations.
So-
We're going to 3 this year.
One of the things I noticed in this, and I think the curriculum, using certified teachers, all of that's really sound. I think where we've gotten a little twisted is the driver to this and the driver to get the cost down was through having more numbers. So I don't really hear anything that we're doing to push more numbers and to expand schools. So then through for like a mass quantity discount to get the price down. So what I think happened last year, to be quite honest with you, our first year, we looked at it as not a loss, but an investment. Like we spent 30, 40, 50, I can't remember what it cost to do the program. We looked at it as an investment. I keep hearing, we're the drive to be cost neutral. I think our drive should be, if the program's solid, to get as many kids in it as possible. Our first year, I think we had a higher student enrollment because we were significantly below market. We weren't at the market price for what it cost for childcare in the summer. We were below that cost. Many of the folks that we compete against, the rec centers, the park districts, dropped their costs last year. And when we're at the same cost, mom and dad have this dilemma. Kids are saying, I want to go swimming, I want to do this, and they can look at the price and go, it costs the same. It's a different dilemma when our program costs less. That was the advantage we had year one. That's not the advantage we had this year. When we look at that, we see that the highest number we've ever seen about our price. I think our price is too high. I think when we continue to do that, that is driving our numbers down. And to build the program up, I think we have to look at that and we have to determine, is the goal to be cost neutral or is the goal to get more kids in the program because it's valuable? And if that's the goal, then we have to determine how much it's worth to invest in that program and less worried about making the program cost neutral.
Right.
I think the other thing is, where's the ESL location? Okay. Is it three? Is it two? Did two of the schools change this year?
Yes.
Okay. Do you see the potential problem with changing schools in terms of attendance?
Yes, absolutely.
So how are we addressing that? Because, and what I mean by that is, what I've noticed in the program in past years is the majority of kids, it appeared, Mr. Lucchese might have some data on this, were, if it was at Pioneer, a lot of the kids from Pioneer were from Pioneer. You know, if it was at RC Hill, a lot of kids from RC Hill were from, a lot of kids who went to the summer program were from there. So understand what we're doing from a marketing standpoint. We're saying, hey, this has a base of support at these two schools last year that drove most of the attendance. We're going to move it to two different schools, which means probably these folks won't come. And then we got to hope that the new schools will advertise the program and get it. And I think that's a bad strategy. I think that's a strategy that will lead to lower numbers. I think a better strategy would be you grow it at the schools you have, and you like target a school, go after that hard and market it, personal invites from teachers and principals of kids that we think can need it, tuition subsidies to build the base there. But moving it to different locations is, you're putting a lot on the line that those folks won't leave and that you can get additional numbers at these other schools.
Can I
Go ahead.
respond just to
Sure.
those two? There were a couple reasons for changing the locations. Some of the reasons were because we had some work being done in some of the buildings. So like Pioneer last summer had their front office, some work done on the office area. So we did switch because of some of the summer maintenance projects. That's one thing.
My response to that would be, we did summer learning when we added kindergarten rooms to all the elementary schools. And we did it with that happening at the schools, which is probably a little more intense than some of the work we're talking about doing this summer.
The other thought that the committee last year when we participated is switching some of the locations to areas that students could walk to the school. We were hoping that that would increase access to some of our students that would be in those areas, and that didn't necessarily indicate that we got more students from those schools, but that was kind of the thought process as you mentioned. This year being back at Pioneer, we did have the highest enrollment previously at Pioneer, and so I could see that maybe will be, you know, a pretty full program this year. So we'll just have to see, and I'll take those points back to the committee so that we can look at those things and try to get it more consistent at buildings.
Yeah, I think a better driver is get kids in the program, not to be cost neutral. If it comes to a point where there's a cost issue, then I think you should bring that to the board, and the board can discuss it and figure out what we want to invest or not invest in summer learning. But I don't want the driver of the committee to be, we got to figure out a way to make this make money or not be in the hole. If the program's worthwhile, you guys have put tons of effort in the curriculum and the instruction given, then the goal should be, let's get as many kids in that as possible.
I agree.
And okay.
No, I absolutely agree, and I do think that, you know, if we were able to provide transportation, that would help, but that is something that we'd have to bring back to the committee.
What's the capacity at each school? So let's just say we had great attendance. What's your capacity with your teachers and all that you have right now?
We would be able to extend capacity. The first few years, we looked at capacity, but we had many classrooms that did not get full. So we had some classrooms with 8, 9, 10 kids. We tried, with a certified teacher being in there, we tried to manage it more effectively so that we wouldn't have such small classrooms. We also had many classrooms that were a combination of 1st and 2nd grade or 3rd and 4th grade. We also wanted to try to have, that was part of the reason of going to 3 locations, so that we would be able to have larger classrooms, so that we would be able to really not split up the kids and put them in multi-grade level. So there's we're kind of evolving with this program, and I think it's getting better all the time, but I think feedback from you as well as the community will help us to better navigate it, to determine how we can best create the best program for our community.
In terms of the numbers that you cited, last year was 360 something, right? And this year currently is 3.
We were in the 330s for 2014. In 2013, we were 360, 370.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
so
misunderstood.
2014 was 332, And then 2013 was about 360. So it was about maybe around 30 students difference.
So in response to some of the questions that the board had, it's not too late for us to adjust our marketing strategy in the hopes of increasing the number and have discussions around the concept of it being cost neutral versus what's best for the kids.
Yes, absolutely, we can do that.
I think just to echo a little bit what Vice President Gugis is saying, I think from a marketing standpoint, I think all of the schools need to really help push this. And it needs to come from that I hate to say it, but that grassroots level of, on the front line. And that's where the schools can come into play and help. And it's not committee driven, it's school driven. And they need to be the loudest screamers of this entire program. So I'd like to just make sure that happens. So.
And Larry Randa did assist us last year with a communication plan. Obviously, we can get better at that. But we did do a lot working with the building administrators to try to get the message out last year. We had it on the agenda for principal and assistant principals meetings several times, but as with everything, we can always get better. And I agree with more access would be very good.
So what are the 3 schools this year?
Hermanson, Pioneer, and BJ Ward.
Okay, what were the 3 schools last year?
Hill, Independence, and Tibbet.
Okay. So I think the price is a key one, and I don't have a dog in the fight of which school it's at. It is just a little baffling though that when I think about if it's at 3 schools this year and then next year we move it to 3 different schools, and we know that most of the kids that come to the program are from that neighborhood school. They probably walk. The weather's nice, unlike it is now. And then we up and move the program, there will be a lot of loss from the 3 schools from the prior year, whatever they are, whether it's this year or next year. And I just really struggle with that strategy. I don't fully understand that.
I believe we were looking at it from an equity standpoint in terms of students or families where transportation presented an issue. We felt that having some type of rotation then would, from an equity perspective, give students from that neighborhood the opportunity to attend, although it's not on a yearly basis.
And I think that's, again, where it's driven by cost instead of driven by enrolling kids. It's like, well, we can only afford 3 sites to be neutral, but we want to get it at BJ Ward. Get it. Makes sense you want to get it at BJ Ward. Then I think the conversation should be, let's add BJ Ward and ask the board, hey, how much are you willing to invest in this to add it to here? But if you move it site to site like that every year, you rotate the sites, you are having people get used to it and then go, oh, I can't do it next year because it's too far away from my school. So what do you do next year when it's not at BJ Ward? Your kid doesn't go that year. That just seems really problematic. And I think the driver of that isn't anything to do with curriculum or rigor. It's the perceived notion that the program has to be cost neutral. I think this is one of those things where if we invest and do it right, the program will be cost neutral long term. Obviously our biggest driver of cost is that we hire certified teachers, but that's the right move.
Right.
Both from an education standpoint and honestly from a marketing standpoint, that's the best move.
But when you add another school, you add a third more to your cost because you add another principal and you add all those teachers, and class sizes go down quite a bit. So is it cost effective at all?
Well, and we found that in the
That's my
first year when
concern.
we didn't have the enrollment from having so many sites, when we didn't get enrollment to warrant having it at all those sites, that's when there was a reduction in the number of sites. So we certainly take your feedback.
How many sites were in the first year again?
5.
Do you remember?
5.
We ended up with 5. I do believe the intention in the beginning was to have, as many as possible. I remember feedback that it would be a goal to have it at every building, and I certainly would hope that we could, but just the enrollment didn't justify having it at all of those sites. Of course, that would be ideal for our families, but unfortunately, we just couldn't provide for that.
Anything else?
I think what we're hearing is that the board is willing to entertain the notion of this not being cost neutral because that was a significant driver in some of the decisions we made was cost. But if we're hearing from the Board of Education that you would prefer that those decisions be made or at least you be presented with options concerning cost versus being cost neutral. Without a doubt, we can present you with several more options for you to consider, along with what the cost would be, and then allow you to make the decision with us understanding that we would operate under that auspices.
Well, I mean, for instance, I think the projection that you're cost neutral is projecting that you'll have the same number of students next year. But there's no guarantee, especially when you've moved 2 of the 3 sites, because you would probably have to replace the majority of those kids. A lot of the kids from Independence probably aren't going to make the trip to Ward or Pioneer. A lot of the kids from Tibbet probably aren't going to do the same. The kids from Hill probably won't make the trip to Hermanton. So when you do that, you're making projections based on it, but you're making the projection that you're going to find new enrollment. So, I mean, all of it is projection on terms of what we do. I always think options are better, but
one other consideration is that we run our extended school year program for students with IEPs who warrant that type of instruction, and that program has traditionally rotated. We also rotated at the high school level and middle school level as well, and so we try to double up on those programs. So, for example, at RC Hill last year, we had ESY running at the same time as SLE, and for us that is effective in terms of, for example, nursing, because we were able to have one nurse on site as opposed to having at multiple buildings.
And parents also, if they were in ESY, there were several that were in
that would stay
SLE, right? And exactly that was.
So then I have 2 questions. If it's the will of the board that they would prefer that we bring them several options, of which some would include a cost that would indicate it's not neutral. That would be my first question, if that's the will of the board, one. And then if it is the will of the board, my second question would be for the committee, is there still time to afford developing further options to allow the board to make an informed decision about whether or not they want to commit to a program that may not be cost neutral, that would benefit more kids?
Absolutely, we can do that. And I think in the committee, Mr. Guges, we did have discussions about staying at one location, but it was also part of being equitable and providing the opportunity for other students in the district. But your point is very well taken. I think, if we look at it, and really transportation would be something that would be key. And we did talk about shuttling. Instead of going to bus stops, you would shuttle at the local school so that it's not.
I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't buy the transportation one. And I'm going to tell you why I don't buy the transportation issue. How many kids get bused to Hermanton every day? Right now. How many kids get bused to Hermanton?
Hardly none, except if they're in a special program.
Okay. So Hermanton kids don't take the bus now. Elementary schools don't have the level of, they're all different, but they do not have the level of busing that we see at middle and high.
Well,
So one of the schools on the list doesn't even have kids that come on the bus now. So if we offer bus service, they'd be like, what do I take? I don't take bus service during the school year.
But we're talking buses could pick them up at other schools and take
yeah,
them to Hermanton.
she's referring to a shuttle type program. So if I was an Independence family, I could have if I could get my child to Independence, or I could walk across the street to my school at Independence, I could get on a bus and go to the site.
I think we have to use what we know currently happens in our district. The number one reason why parents don't want to send their kids to Challenge is they don't want to put their kids on a bus and send them to some other school that's not their neighborhood school. That's the complaint we hear all the time. Why isn't there Challenge at my own school? I don't want to put my 5-year-old on a bus and send them across the thing. I remember we offered busing. I just don't necessarily think that busing is the magic solution. I think busing will be a huge cost. I'd love to see it as an option. I think before, when we talked about it, was it a couple $100s a kid for busing? I can't remember. Mr. Randall, you remember how much it cost for busing? Or is Principal Paskevich here? Nobody's here that remembers how much it cost for busing, but it was expensive.
It was expensive, I do remember that. But we will look at, if that's what you'd like us to do, we'd be happy to look at a variety of options and bring that to Dr. Mitchum, and he can share that with you, and we're definitely open. There is time, and we definitely could follow your direction with that, not a problem.
Well, I'd like to just say that I'd like to see that happen.
Yeah.
And even if there was the options of what it would be to do busing, but then what would it be to pull back in one of the schools that maybe it was very successful, that you had a high attendance at, and keep a couple of the schools the same to see if more will be built because of it happening a second time.
Absolutely, and I think what we can do is look at all of our previous students and see where their home school resides. So for example, just saying that attendance at Jamie McGee was popular the year that it was there, well, some of those students could have been from Pioneer. We can check on that as well, and definitely look into that. It will be difficult to give specific cost projections, however, because that is certainly dependent on enrollment. And so we could say we can offer it at 5 additional sites, but we don't know. Enrollment could be 20 students, or enrollment could be 700 additional students. So it certainly will be a moving target, and we can definitely look into it further and adjust if needed. Once we.
But I think we can develop a myriad of possibilities, and then maybe set some benchmarks in time for if in fact we want to attempt one possible scenario versus another possible scenario. So I mean, we can bring you a multitude of schools. We can do it with transportation, without transportation. We can have all the cost projections embedded in that proposal. And then we could also potentially put, as we begin to market this through the principals and Larry Randa and any other means in which we could market it, then, set up some times, again, at the will of the board, as to, what costs we're willing to absorb based on the enrollment numbers as they come in. Because, again, for all we know, we could get 800 kids, right. We could get 500 kids.
The first year, we did not break even, but I don't remember it being a huge number. That was
36,000.
Yeah, invested. I like that word. $36,000 was our investment in the first year. So I'd like to keep that in mind. I think with the busing, I think on the first year we offered busing, but you had to pay for it. And I don't believe we had that many people take advantage of that opportunity. I would just throw out, if we're going to do busing, I think right now we do, pick up on your local corner. I wonder if on the cost side, if that's the concern on that, if we could go to more community-based sites, if we're not going to all schools. Like even maybe like.
Well, even if you made all the schools.
Schools, like a pickup site
that they
might
would be
like a
save money.
A shuttle.
And
Yeah.
that has
Similar to
one
what
of
you're saying.
the discussions.
Right, that might save money, because I know we modeled it after like the traditional pickup service, and it was very expensive.
Right.
We had very few people take advantage of it.
Remember, Mr. Gugis, that you're the one about finances also.
I am.
We were running at a deficit, and so you
I
were
am.
concerned about finances, so,
I am.
we just have to keep that in mind also as we run summer school.
I would be fine to find other areas to cut for whatever it would cost for summer learning.
Okay, Larry was able to bring me a little budget here. He said that the busing fees collected were $8,900, and the cost for transportation was $39,000. So pretty much $30,000 was the cost to the district, and that is why we've tried to be more fiscally responsible and more strategic in our planning of this. And we're getting better each year.
How many students was that we bust? Does he have that on there? That was from the first year, right? 20 or 30? Okay.
But was that
They had to pay for
then
it.
the?
That was the pay.
Correct.
There was a fee required for that.
But was that at the pickup sites, or was that the traditional pickup?
That was the traditional pickup.
So it may be
pickup
less
sites
expensive
might
for
be
if we do a
less
shuttle.
expensive doing that.
It would certainly be less expensive to have a few centralized locations to pick up.
I think we're focusing a lot on the busing and the transportation, and I think Rachel, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think we need to figure out over the last 3 years, not where these kids went to summer learning, but where they're from. And that's the information that to me is the most important, because that's going to tell me and dictate where we need to have these sites. And we might just have to add one site and not worry about transportation, and then therefore you can still stay somewhat fiscally in check, but I think we need to know where these kids are from. And I know, because we talked about it last year, and Pioneer was a great site because it was hugely populated and everything else. But who knows? Maybe some of those kids are from Independence. Yeah, we don't know. But that's what I'd like to know is where all these kids, these 600 and 700 kids over the last couple of years, where did they come from?
Right.
And then we can look at strategic locations and say, okay, well, then we can look at that. Maybe we don't even have to deal with the busing transportation, and we can still get more kids involved and still remain somewhat fiscally responsible. So that's my thought.
Yep, we can do that.
Thank you for the feedback.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you have
One more information
Yeah.
report, yes. Information report 14.3. Tonight we are presenting information prior to seeking approval for the purchase of math materials for grades 3, 4, 5. Specifically, we are looking to purchase mathematics manipulatives, that is hands-on materials for our students and for our teachers. I'd like to invite Adam Herder, who is the Director of Mathematics and Science for Pre-K 5, to come forth to just share a little bit of information with you regarding what these materials are, why they are critical pieces to put in our students' and our teachers' hands, and certainly I can discuss with you the costs that are included and budgeted for in this fiscal year budget.
Good
Thank
evening,
you.
members of the board and community. My name is Adam Herder. I'm the Director of Elementary Math and Science. And this proposed purchase covers a variety of different hands-on materials for our students. It would be for students in grades 3 through 5, and it would supplement the manipulatives that we have existing in our classrooms already. A major difference with these manipulatives that is crucial is that they meet our teachers' needs and our students' learning needs related to the Common Core state standards. One example of that would be that procedural fluency, the ability to compute numbers quickly, is one of the skills that the Common Core addresses, and the manipulatives we're proposing provide alternative and more beneficial and valuable ways to attack those skills than just rote practice with flashcards, which is what we've done in the past. One crucial item, and this is a little awkward to manipulate up here. I wanted to bring visual aids. This is called a 100 bead rack, and this is, it's not a majority of the cost, but it certainly is one of the more significant costs involved in the proposal. This would be for third grade teachers as a demonstration rack, and then even more crucially, the more costly piece that we're asking for is for each student to have a student-sized version of this. So currently, some teachers have these in their classrooms, and we could purchase this for every teacher to display and model for students, but for students to actually have their own version at their desk individually would be dramatically beneficial beyond what we have access to currently. And this device does a variety of different things. It teaches anywhere from counting by 2s and 3s to work on multiplication skills. It teaches counting when adding larger numbers, which is a review skill for our third graders, and it also works significantly with multiplication skills, which is what I was talking about before. So like one example would be like if you had 15 beads, one of the reasons the colors are different obviously is that it prioritizes 5s, it prioritizes 10s, then the colors switch here so it prioritizes 50 as half of 100. But if you're teaching a third grader multiplication, you can say this is 3 rows of 5. It's also 5 rows of 3, which is teaching the commutative property, which is a major piece of the Common Core that students need to understand to be prepared to leave elementary school. And we can also talk about how when you're multiplying 5 times 5, you're essentially just adding up the numbers. So it's a visual representation of the fact that multiplication is just advanced addition. But that's an easy concept to explain, and you can put that on a worksheet, but having students actually be able to manipulate a device like this individually at their desk, along with the teacher, and then sort of as a means of discovery for themselves, would be very valuable for us. Just generally, the other pieces are relate to our STEM initiatives, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. There's a lot of different weights and balances that we don't currently have with our classroom materials that address science and math topics in the Common Core in the upper grades. And those are essentially the bulk of the costs. In the information report, there are several links for the community to find, or if anyone requests them, we can provide them, related to not only the activities that you can do with the 100 bead frame, but also research on how manipulatives are data proves that they will lead to increased student learning, and a summary for parents that really explains in parent-friendly terms why are students using hands-on materials in elementary school as opposed to just working on paper. And I can answer any other questions that anyone has.
Adam, I read that you guys are going to spend the time to somehow make sure that's organized and labeled and numbered, and so these manipulatives don't go walking out the door with their little hands on.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. So in the information report, there's information, I was actually pretty excited. We were able to negotiate for each classroom teacher, their set of manipulatives for their grade level will be obviously organized for them and put into its own kit. And that's all free of charge by the company, which is not only logistically helps us, but it makes it much easier to inventory the materials. And each tub or kit will have a code that we will know exactly which room that each tub or kit went to. And we'll be able to, over the years, if it moves, we'll be able to change the room it's in. So real time, we can say, here's where it is. And we don't have to do something sophisticated with a barcode. We can actually do that in that fashion. The other nice thing that we were able to negotiate sort of tangentially is the company will ship these materials to all 12 of the elementary schools, which is a fairly unprecedented benefit that we get from our
Will you
our
negotiate
suppliers.
the shipping part of all contracts for districts
Well,
and stuff?
I don't think it would work as well with some of the other contracts as it did with this one, but this company, I will say, it's the name of the company is ETA Hand to Mind, and most teachers will know it as ETA Cuisenaire, which used to sell like those blue math squares and math blocks. They changed their name, but the company is really just the best way to address our hands-on learning needs out there in the market. And the fact that they're doing these other things for us really, develops a partnership that we can take advantage of.
It's in here.
Do we have a total cost?
We do have a total cost. So our investment in these materials for our students is $127,000. So that is a significant investment, obviously, but this is not a purchase that we need to do, on a yearly basis. This has some longevity in terms of how long that we can maintain and sustain these materials. This covers all 12 of our elementary buildings, and at 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, every single teacher teaches mathematics. So in order to equip all of the classrooms and all of the teachers, we incur this cost. However, it is definitely a worthwhile investment.
I had a teacher once ask me if they could have more manipulatives in elementary school, but she was asking at the pre-K through 2nd grade level. So can you talk a little bit about what we do in terms of manipulatives there?
Sure, yeah. A manipulative request in the upper grades in elementary is ironic when you consider that they're used differently in our pre-K through 2 classrooms. Those classrooms have a variety of manipulatives that came with our existing math series, more related to counting and like simple addition. And we've also, through our professional development, that's really been focused on kindergarten through 2nd grade, while we've professionally developed 3rd through 5th grade teachers as well. We made the decision to ensure that foundationally our students were prepared after 3 years in K1 and 2. That professional development relied on a lot of manipulatives that you can't necessarily buy in the market, that we assisted teachers in making and that we make here and give to teachers that are sort of more appropriate for the Common Core skills at those grade levels. So I actually feel confident that our manipulatives in K through 2 are sufficient, but of course it would be something that we would look at supplementing, just like we're focusing on 3 through 5 to supplement now. Our problem was the need area currently was in the upper grades in elementary. They just didn't have the appropriate tools.
Thank you.
So we'd be happy to answer any additional questions this evening or between now and next board meeting when we seek your approval on this purchase.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Legal services report.
Thank you. I do not have a report tonight.
AFT. Valley View Council. Valley View Office Personnel Council. All right. Any old business? Is there any new business? Is there any questions from the public? Feel free to come up. Seeing none. Announcements by the board. Any and all. I have one announcement. There was a lot of last week was a hard week with the school closures. So a couple things I wanted to say on that for our community, that those decisions are not made without a lot of planning and thought. And to share with you a little bit of that planning, and feel free to add in, Dr. Mitchum, our basic threshold is minus 30 degrees with the wind chill. That is based on the weather forecast, and the accuracy of said weather forecast is not in our control. And that is typically done the day before. When the temperature is projected at minus 30 degree wind chill, school is called. When it's less than minus 30 degrees, school is not. There has to be a line drawn somewhere. I realize that maybe when it was called versus the temperature of the actual day did not turn out to be as cold as the forecast, but we have to go with the information we have at the time. Some folks ask, well, what if it was minus 29? The threshold is minus 30. And they said there's not much difference. I would also argue there's not much difference between an 89 and a 90, but on the report card for high schoolers, it looks different. So, not saying that that's the best system, but that is the idea. On snow, call is made by the transportation department in conjunction with both Romeoville and Bolingbrook and their roads departments to see what is the status of the roads and can the buses safely travel the roads. So that is how the basic framework. It is not Dr. Mitchum standing outside with his finger in the air guessing. There's a procedure, and that procedure is followed. So I appreciate all of the community's flexibility. I appreciate staff's flexibility. And last week, obviously, it was a tough week for us. In addition to that, some of the community members have asked about alternatives to days to being made up. Days like Pulaski Day have been thrown out there. We will be in discussions with our negotiating bodies here shortly, and we will bring those discussions up. If they find some agreement and we find some agreement, then we will bring that to the board.
Question in reference to those winter days. What's the walking population of our students? How many students actually walk to class or to school? Do we have a number, about 3,000 or 4,000?
It's probably higher than that, probably closer to 6.
Closer to 6,000. I think that's an important piece to understand as community members and parents, right? I mean, I get it that many of us will attempt to take our kids to school when the temperatures drop or when it's snowing. But there are also many families out there that don't have the ability to do that because they have a second job or they're working multiple shifts and they're just not able to drive their kids to school. And I think that's an important piece that a lot of folks don't recognize, that is why sometimes we have to make a call to say we have to close school because we do have students that do walk to school and just don't have the transportation. And unless Mr. Mitchum and staff are going to go pick up these kids, we just don't have the ability to do it. So I just want to make sure that that's clear because I know that I did get some emails and some calls saying, why are we shutting school down? And the fact is that, several of us will drop off our kids at school when these temperatures drop, but there are many families out there that just don't have that ability. So I just want to make sure that was recognized.
4 years ago, when I accepted the position of superintendent, and I began to network with more veteran superintendents, all of them indicated to me that one of the most important decisions I could make as a superintendent is whether or not we call school or don't call school as a result of snow. And I scoffed at all of them because I thought with all of the idiosyncrasies surrounding curriculum and instruction and assessment and evaluation, how could the simple decision of calling school be so laboring? But I'm here to say that they were accurate in their assessment and that is probably one of the most difficult decisions I have to make each year. I've been called sheep for following the Chicago public school system. I've been called heartless because I'm sending kids out in bad weather and they're going to die, and everything in between. So every time you make that decision, there are people who are happy and there are people who are unhappy, which I've learned to accept with most every decision that we have to make.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchum.
Any announcements by the administration?
Yes, related to those 2 days, our school year last day will be June 2nd. It will be extended by 2 days. And just to let parents know, report cards are coming home a couple days later than planned because of that extended timeline. I also wanted to let our families know that January 14th, so Wednesday evening, will be our incoming freshman orientation night at Bolingbrook High School. And our incoming freshman orientation night at Romeoville High School will be January 15th. So all of our 8th graders who are getting ready to go to high school, please go out to your respective high schools with your families, and we'll start getting you ready.
Are there any announcements by the public? I have one more announcement. I do see we have a guest. I see Miss Jean Kelly in the back. She's from the DuPage Township Assessor's Office, and she's former Bolingbrook Women's Club president. So nice to see you, Miss Kelly. Thanks for coming.
May I make one announcement? Sure. Most recently, members of CORE, who's sitting right to my right, lost a parent, and I just want to say publicly that our condolences go out to her, and we keep her in our prayers.
Absolutely. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This meeting's adjourned. What's going on, Howard?